Hey folks, thanks for joining us here at We Be Fishing, the viewable podcast right here on YouTube. We are a spinoff version of the B&T Catfishing Adventure channel, and I'm so glad to have you with us today. I'm your host, Brad Reynolds, and we're going to talk about reels today, fishing reels. I did an episode just the other day on spinning reels, and I thought, that was a 4-minute video. I explained how to use them and so on, but you really need to break these things down a little bit better and explain them even more, whether it's a bait casting reel or a spinning reel for catfishing. And so we're going to talk about it today because there's some of you out there thinking about getting into fishing or buying doing an upgrade on a reel, and you really don't know what to look for. So we're going to give you some tips on how to find the reel that may be best for you. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is determine what kind of fish it is you're catching out there in catfish. Are you going for the big, huge, large flatheads and the blue cats and things, or are you, doing a lot of pond fishing and small rivers or small lakes and stuff where you're finding yourself catching a lot of channel cats, that are, 2, 3, 5 pounds and so on and so forth. All this helps determine what kind of reel you want or what would be best for you. Now, generally speaking, if you're in the mix of different types of catfish, the rule of thumb is the 6,000 series to the 8,000 series is going to cover pretty much anything you need there, from the very big fish down to the smaller fish. Now, if you're going for the smaller fish, the 5,000 series reels will work nicely for you. You can do that, and that's going to work nicely. But when you get into the bigger fish, you're going to need something that's got a little bit more strength, a little bit more backbone there. And so the 5,000 to the 8,000 series of reels is what you're going to look for. Now, whether that's the spinning reel or the bait casting reel, that's what you're looking for. Let's talk next about line capacity. Now, these things are marked, a lot of times on the bag or box they come in. But let's say you're looking for something and you find something at a yard sale or a flea market somewhere, and you're thinking about buying it. Well, the information is right there, a lot of times right there on the reel somewhere. And it will tell you what the line capacity is. Now that means how much line is going to go on the spool of that reel. Now you think that may not be important until you hook into a large fish and he takes off on a long, long run. And then you'll find out how important it is. All right, so what you want to look at on there, it will tell you how much line you can put on that spool and at what pound test. So if I'm doing a 20-pound test, it may be 200 yards, okay, or 250 yards. But if I step up in size, it may reduce the amount of line capacity that can go up on that reel, because the dimensions, the diameter of that fishing line is greater, so it's going to take up more space. All right. Now you'll also find on there in meters sometimes and millimeters. It'll talk about how many meters. For instance, you may have 200 meters of line that can go on there at, for instance, 0.045. Now 0.045 is 20-pound test line, okay? So if you're looking at it or you see it in meters, that tells you what it is. Now, something to note here, if you're somebody that likes to use braid, sometimes it will tell you the line capacity for braid as well, okay? Sometimes it won't. So what you need to know is braid actually takes up less space than monofilament. So if you're find something and you can actually go a larger pound test line, for instance, in braid that would be stronger and fit more of it on there than, let's say, a smaller, slightly smaller dimension pound test in the monofilament. So that could get you more line on that spool. Now, that's not saying that braid works good on every reel. So you need to, really look into what you're using, how you're using it, and so on and so forth. All right. But line capacity is an important part. You want a decent amount of line capacity on that reel. Now, your drag, you want to have a drag is a very important feature on there, on your reel as well. And what a drag is, it is line resistance that the fish will feel when they're tugging on that line. Now, you want to have a certain amount of resistance on it. Now, here's the tricky part. Some people break off because they have that too tight, okay? And that, boom, they just snap that line when that big jerk comes in there and pops it like that. That just, it's gone. You just lost your fish because you had your drag too tight. When you throw your line out there and you think you're set up, a good rule of thumb is just reach down and grab that line by hand and try pulling that line out. It should come out fairly smoothly. Now you want to feel some resistance, but if you're really having to force it to get it out of there, you got your drag set too tight. Now, some people are going to loosen those things up so much that it may not even pull the weight and the amount of bait you've got in there, more or less a fish on there too. So you don't want it super easy. You want some resistance that you're feeling on that drag when you reach down to pull it out to test it. You want to feel some resistance, but again, not too much, okay? And again, learning where that drag needs to be set, the amount of resistance is important to help making sure that you're not going to break off. Now, the drag being set somewhat firm is also going to help you play that fish. It's going to tire that fish out. If he can pull that line out easy, he's going to run all day, right? So that makes the fight that much longer and harder on you. So make sure the drag is set right so your line is not going to break. It helps you wear that fish out and you can get him in and decide what you're going to do with him, whether you're turning him loose right then, or you're putting him in the live well, you're doing a tournament or whatever, or you're going to take him home. But either way, that helps you get that fish in faster, and the faster you get it in, the less stress on the fish if you're planning on returning it back to the water later. Another thing on these reels you can look for sometimes is ball bearings. The amount of ball bearings that are used in here generally will give you smoother reeling and casting abilities. So look for the number of ball bearings on there and just test that reel out. Make sure you're spinning it, see how well the spool spins or the handle spins when you kind of check that out and those ball bearings. Now, power handles. Now on spinning reels come with power handles, and they're the big, larger handles on there. Now, that doesn't help line ratio or gear ratio, but it helps with leverage and torque when you're reeling in the fish. And that's definitely important if you're reeling in bigger fish. Now, bait casters don't all come with power handles, but most all of them can be fitted with a power handle. You can usually find one on the market, or sometimes in a sporting goods store, you definitely find power handles of various types online. But Power handles are definitely, I recommend them. They're a good thing to help you get that torque, get that leverage, making it easier to get those fish in. So that's something to keep in mind. Now let's talk about, as I mentioned, something about gear ratio. All right, gear ratio is something else, the numbers you're going to be able to find on the reel. When you're looking at the reel, it's going to have some numbers on there. Now, what you want to find for overall general good usage for catfishing in general is a 5-2.1, right? Or a 6-2-1. Now, what this is the amount of revolutions that reel is going to spin, right, when you turn the handle one revolution. So if I turn it one time, let's say I've got my gear ratio of 5.2, right? So I turn that handle, that's going to rotate 5.2 times around with just one spin of the handle. All right. So in general, the 5.2-1 or the 6.2-1 is a good ratio in general for catfishing overall. Now, if you're, you can even lower that number. Let's say I had a reel the other day I was doing, showing, and it's like a 4.9-1. Okay. If you lower that ratio a little bit, that helps you fighting the bigger fish. All right. So the lower the ratio, okay, again, without going to extremes here, it helps give you the force, the power when cranking that handle to get the bigger fish in. All right. Hope that makes sense to you. But like I said, the 5.21 to the 6.21 is a good rule of thumb in general for the various species of catfish here in North America that we're going to be after. Now, that pretty well covers it. But now, if you're looking at spinning reels, some spinning reels also have something called bait feeders on them. Okay, now this is basically like a secondary type of drag. It will let the spool spin freely and let the fish actually take the bait and run with it with really no resistance whatsoever. Now, as it does it, there is a little bit of clicking sound, which sounds like a bait, a clicker on a bait caster, but it will make it can make a noise. It's generally not as loud as you're going to find on a bait caster, but if you're paying attention and you have decent hearing, you're probably going to hear it. So that's a feature that's not on all spinning reels, but you can find them on the more expensive spinning reels. Now, then I mentioned clicker, and clicker is another feature that you can put on if you're interested in having that on, that when the fish grabs it, it takes off and it starts clicking, click, 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 letting you know. No, I'm not going to repeat that click. Anyway, it lets you know that there is a fish running with your line and time to wake up and get busy. But bait clickers are not on, obviously, as a rule, they're not on spinning reels, but some spinning reels do have the bait feeder switch that are on spinning reels that can sometimes sound like the clicker on a bait caster. All right, so that's just a brief explanation of some of that stuff. But the more important stuff that we talked earlier about is the size of the reel you're getting. Okay, the 6,000 to 8,000 series. Again, when you're looking for your gear ratio, the 5.2-1 or the 6.2-1 is a good rule of thumb. Again, check out your line capacity. All right, line capacity is important. Remember, think about the amount of line that you want to put on it. The pound test line that you wish to put on there. Now, remember, a lot of people, you see a lot of people that think you need to have 80-pound test line as your main line on your reel. And you don't. Let's be honest. Anywhere from 20 to 40-pound test line on your main reel is just fine. Now, if you want to go on your leader line, all right, on the other end where the hook is, right, your leader line may be anywhere from, you may want 40 to 80-pound test line on your leader line. So that's where it's down there, possibly in the rocks, going over debris and structure and things like that, that could nick the line a little bit, okay? So if you want to use monofilament or something down there, or fluorocarbon or whatever as your leader line, the heavier leader line at that point may be better. So don't think just because something says 20, 30-pound test on your reel, right? And again, that's going to be plenty. Also, if you are using braid, right, it takes up less diameter on that spool, so you can actually get a little bit more braid on there. Again, remember that braid doesn't work well on all reels, so keep that in mind. Folks, I hope this is helping, but listen, no matter what reel you're planning on purchasing or thinking about getting into, read everything you can on that reel. Maybe get online, see if anybody's had issues with some of these reels. Now, somebody's going to have issues with any type and every type of reel out there. All right, whether it's just the promoter of another company, and so he's putting down a specific reel, so you'll buy his reel instead. Or, you can make a billion products, but there's going to be one come off the line that's not going to be perfect. Something's going to go wrong with it. So you're going to find some good reviews, and you're going to find maybe a few bad reviews. You just kind of got to wade through that stuff a little bit and see if you think it's worth going ahead and making that purchase. Again, if you're stepping up in reel size and and or types of reel, it can be more expensive. Again, spinning reels do not have to be super, super expensive to find decent quality spinning reels that are going to work well for catfishing. But if you are looking at maybe the bigger cats, maybe you want the bait caster as well, you're going to have to spend a little bit more money when we're stepping up to that higher level. Whether you're a tournament fisherman or you're just going after those trophy-sized fish, you may have to pay a little bit extra money. So it's important to get the right reel for you. Guys, I hope this helps you. I appreciate you watching. Thanks so much. And be sure to share this information with your friends. We'll hope to see you back here soon. You guys have a good one.